Let's tank Spellblade Aluriel in the nighthold on Mythic difficulty. Now this fight is pretty much the same as Heroic, but all the mechanics are a lot more punishing, as well as getting a Fell Soul add which does different abilities depending on which phase of the fight you're in. So throughout the fight, Spellblade is going to be using Annihilate on the tank, and there's two ways you can deal with this. The first way is to take 2 stacks each, so first tank takes 2 stacks, and then the second tank takes 2 stacks, and then you rotate that until the boss dies. The second way to deal with it is you get one of your melee to taunt, take a stack, get another melee to taunt, take another stack, and so on and so forth. So you have one tank always on Spellblade, and the other tank always on the Fell Soul add. The first way where you taunt Annihilate every 2 stacks, what you want to do is use your mitigation for the first Annihilate on yourself, and for the second one you want to stack damage reduction cooldowns as best as possible so you're not really taking any damage from it, and then the other tank obviously taunts off you and it's dealt with. The other option where you get the melee to taunt is when the cast starts of Annihilate, you call for the first melee to taunt, they'll taunt it, they'll take the first initial tick of Annihilate. You're then going to taunt the boss back to take the rest of the damage from it. The next one comes, you get another melee to taunt, take the initial tick of Annihilate, and then you taunt back. And what this does is the debuff of Annihilate is actually applied on the first tick of the ability going out. So as soon as the first tick's gone out, the debuff is applied, and then the debuff will no longer be applied after that first tick. So the actual melee will take the debuff of Annihilate, and then you taunt back and you will not get the debuff at all. And then obviously the second time it goes out and the melee is going to take the debuff, you taunt back and you have not got any debuffs. And that means that the tanks aren't taking any extra damage from having the Annihilate debuff, and the other tank can focus on doing all the Fell Soul adds, and you don't really need to worry about taunt swapping the ad and the boss at all for the whole fight. Now personally I prefer doing the 2 stacks where you just use your damage reductions and deal with it that way, but obviously if you're having healing problems or any damage checks and you want to just 4 heal it, then it might be better for your guild to do the melee taunt strat. However, for this guide, we're going to be doing the 2 stack strat and taunt. So the main ability for us as tanks on Mythic Spellblade we need to be worried about and prepared for is Annihilate. And what Annihilate does is pretty much what it does on normal and heroic difficulty. And it's going to annihilate up to 2 frontal enemies for 4,700,000 physical damage each round, split evenly between the 2. Now, on Mythic difficulty, we've got to deal with an ad. So one tank will have the ad, one will have the boss. So you're pretty much soloing these frontal barrages, which means we need to be using defensive cooldowns and active mitigation to survive this. Now the first application when you have 0 stacks isn't really going to be causing that much damage, so just use like Shield of the Righteous, shield blocks, and just make sure your heals are focus healing on you. For the second one however, you want to be using big defensive cooldowns like shield walls and an external cooldown like Hand of Sacrifice for example. Now when the ability is first applied, you're going to get a debuff that will make a primary target take 75 additional damage from Spellblade's physical attacks for 1.5 minutes, and this ability does stack, so that's why we only take 2 of them, and then the taunt swap happens. So now we've gone over Annihilate, let's have a look at her Fell Soul add. Now, throughout the fight, she summons the Fell Soul add, she'll summon it in the Frost phase, the Fire phase, and the Arcane phase, and in each phase it gets an extra ability, but it comes with 2 main abilities. The first one is Severed Soul, and all this is it means you've got to keep the add and Spellblade within 45 yards of each other or they become enraged. So this means we've got to have set positions for each phase, which I'll go over when we talk about the phases themselves. Now, the other ability that this ad does is Decimate, and what this does is the ad's going to strike her enemy for 4,300,000 physical damage, knocking them back significantly. Now, all you need to do to really counter the knockback is position yourself so your back's against a wall and use some kind of mitigation just to get rid of the damage of the initial hit of it. Apart from that, the melee hits from the ad don't really do too much. Now, the other 3 abilities that the ad has, which are phase-specific abilities, so for the Frost phase, you're going to get Whirling Barrage, Fire phase, Fell Stomp, and for the Arcane phase, Fell Lash. And we'll go over how to handle each one of these in each phase. So let's first of all start looking at the Frost phase, positioning, how to handle the ad, and cooldowns. So to start with, you want to tank Spellblade on the back left hand side of the stairs, that's how we did it, and then you want to put the Fell Soul ad to the back right of the stairs. The main reason behind this positioning is to handle the Fell Soul ad's ability Whirling Barrage, which when cast will make the ad slash wildly in the direction of random distant enemies, inflicting 1.5 million fire damage to those within range of her and knocking them back She'll only do this ability in the Frost phase. So basically, all the ability is going to do is target your healers and ranged DPS, and it's going to ping pong from your off tank or whatever tank's got the Fell Sword at that time. It's going to ping pong between that tank and any range or healers. So all the range and healers need to be aware of where this Fell Sword is spinning towards and just stay out the way. Now, as the main tank in this phase, you just need to make sure you got the cooldowns ready for Annihilate, and when Detonate comes and the blue patch of Frost, what we did, we moved the boss to the bottom of the stairs in the centre, getting ready just to pick up all the ads. And when the ads come, just tank them on the boss. And the Fell Sword should be disappearing at this point, where the other tank then taunts the boss to take the next Annihilates going out. And you just want to focus down the enraged ads, which grow because they're going to start pushing you back. And the goal is to kill the ads before she turns into fire phase. And that's pretty much it. The main important thing here is just to make sure all the ads are picked up and they're on the tanks. You don't really need to use any cooldowns at this point. The ads don't really hit too much. And just make sure that you're not in front of the Annihilate with your 2 stacks as the main tank when the tank swap goes out. So now let's have a look at the fire phase. Now, the Fell Soul ad in this phase should be spawning around the time the last Frost ads are just about to die. And what you want to do is the off tank at this point, who's got the 2 Annihilate stacks, wants to taunt this ad and pull it to one of the sides. And the ability in this phase that the Fell Soul ad is going to do is called Fell Stomp. And what this will do is it's going to target a random enemy and leap to the location, inflicting 500,000 fire damage per second to those caught within the effect. And she's only going to use this during this phase. So basically, all the ad's going to do is leap from the off tank to one of the ranged DPS, leave a fire patch there, jump back to the off tank, leave another fire patch, and rinse and repeat this 3 to 4 times. Can't exactly remember which. Pretty sure it's 3. And then when the fire ads spawn, the ad's going to disappear. So feel free, once she finally leaps back to you and the fire ads come up, to just go and start DPSing the fire ads and taunt the boss, because then it'll be your turn to take the next set of annihilations. Now, for the fire ads, it's very important that you lock these down and interrupt them as much as you can. So what we did as a raid group was assign certain players to certain marked ads. So we'd have a few people on Skull, a few people on X, and then we'd have like a stun rotation, interrupt rotation in each one, just to make sure they're not getting any casts off. Because if they get casts off, it's got to put your heals behind. And if they get too many off, yeah, it's GG, game over, going to blow you up and wipe the raid. So just make sure you've got this pre-assigned and everyone knows what they're doing. And also make sure you have your boss mod set to mark the ads. Finally, you need to be aware of the ability Bound in Flame, which will increase the damage dealt by the ads by 200%, and casting speed is also increased by 100% for every ally within 8 yards. This only counts towards the fire ads, but you need to make sure that they spread at least 8 yards. So to help our players out, we put a few markers down just to give them an indication of how far the ads need to be spread. And if someone messes up, you can grip the ads away, and you can also push them and knock them back just to help out a little bit in case someone does mess up. So apart from that, there's not too much more to go into about the fire phase. So let's go into the arcane phase. Now, the arcane phase is pretty much all about positioning as a tank. And the first thing you'll need to know is where you want the group to be stacked for when you're going to start positioning the arcane ads. Now, we decided to keep the stairway clear for our positioning, where we want the arcane ads, and have everyone else spread around the rest of the room, dropping the orbs down because they target on players. And if you keep the players away from the stairs, you'll keep the stairway area clear. And then when the final replicate arcane orb goes out and there's a few seconds, say 5 seconds till detonate comes, we get everyone to stack up on the tank at the stairway, who is marked with a triangle. And then as soon as you see the arcane fog, you just backpedal all the way back until the orbs stop coming down, and then the second annihilate on the tank will come at that point. So just make sure you're prepared for it. And once that annihilate's done, the other tank will taunt the boss and position the boss in the center of all the ads, which should now be nicely clumped up just to AoE down. You need to kill them obviously before the channel finishes, or they blow up and wipe the raid, and then we go straight back into Frost and repeat. Now for the Fell Soul ad in this phase, what it's going to do is cast Fell Lash, which inflicts 31 million fire damage split evenly among all frontal enemies within 8 yards. And of course she only does this during Arcane Phase. So how we handle this is, because the raid is not stacked when the ad first comes out, and the ability comes within about 8 seconds of when the ad spawns, we make the tank who's currently tanking the ad solo the first one. If you have a prop paladin, you can spell ward this ability. Otherwise, you want to be using stacked defensive abilities just to be able to solo it. And then after the first one, the raid should be starting to stack up, so you just position a little bit behind them, as you'll see, and then make sure you're hitting everyone in the raid with the Fell Lash ability. We also rotate a few raid CDs at this point. So once you learn how to handle the Fell Lash, the positioning for the Arcane Clouds, and have the damage to actually kill the ads when they spawn, you go back to the Frost phase and you repeat this whole process again, and hopefully beat the Enrage, because the Enrage comes after the second set of Arcane ads. And you have about 5 seconds after that, which, if you're not going to beat the timer, make sure your raid spreads out, burn the boss, and pop everything you've got just to beat it. Anyway guys, that's pretty much everything for this fight. Please like, comment, and sub for more vids.